Beginning with what you already know. I am human, and only human. And mortal as I am, the Apostle Paul has some words for me today, that no matter what I say, if I say it without love, I am nothing more than a 4-year-old with his first drum set, or the final bars of Ravel's famous musical joke. Maybe you too are only mortal and can relate. Or maybe you are somewhat more than merely human. Maybe you have greater powers that Paul notices. Maybe you have prophetic powers. Or maybe you have wisdom beyond compare. But if you did, would wisdom ever allow you to admit it? Or maybe you have faith like Jesus himself, or think you do, or tell others that you do. Maybe you are one of the greats about whom books are written and stories are preserved. And if you are, even if you are that amazing, but do not know what Nat King Cole knows, that the greatest gift is to know how to love and be loved in return, well then, Paul says, don't bother. And if words aren't your gifts, but you're more of a faith in action sort of type, consider your works as a demonstration of your faith. If I give everything I have, or if I serve soup kitchen every Tuesday, if you give your money to good causes and people, if you make a display of all the good that we do while gossiping about why all the others aren't doing as good as us, what is gained? Nothing, says Paul. To speak, to know, to do without love is nothing. And not just the I don't have anything sort of nothing. This is the sort of nothing that nothing is worse than. Nothing is worse than this nothing that Paul imagines. Love is not envious. It doesn't boast or self-promote. It isn't arrogant, resentful, irritable, or rude. Love does not insist on its own ways, and it never celebrates evil. Love is something so much more than human. Because who here has never had a moment of envy or wanting to share a boastful story or maybe get a little resentful or rude or irritable? We can all get cranky from time to time. But love is something more than these human emotions. Love is something more than these lesser demons, and it's something to which we can all aspire. Love is patient. Love is kind. And love rejoices in truth. Love never ends. This text from Paul's first letter to the ancient church in Corinth is a popular one for greeting cards and quoting and wedding services. Maybe it was at your wedding. Maybe just hearing Willem read these words today took you back to a time or a place of great love in your life. Maybe it's a text that you come again to and again, looking for secrets of how to make it more so, how to be more loving. This text is on my mind these days as we approach a second anniversary of COVID-19 here with us, and as we consider the church we will be on the other side. This text is on my mind as Collegiate considers what church it will be on the other side as well, what church we all will be on the other side. It's on my mind as I know many of you are considering the options Consistory and I have told you are on the table, the difficulty of Collegiate's financial and real estate portfolios, and the state of the church we've inherited that we are now discussing in earnest these past several months. That there is so much change in the air and that there will be more. This text, this ancient text, about a church that is changing is so much on my mind as to how we speak with truth and frankness about the future, rather than focusing only on the past. Love never ends. How may it shape our reality today and the one we are living into for tomorrow? Last Monday, your consistory met to discuss the realities of collegiate and how collegiate's realities are shaping and influencing the reality of West End. We talked for over 2 hours about how our historic church will affect the future ministry of West End Collegiate. It was not always an easy conversation. It was a hard conversation. It was honest. It was truthful. It was emotional. It was, in short, the conversation that West End Church always has. Full of emotion and heart, full of thought and care, actively wondering and thinking through. Among the many questions that we asked and the options that we weighed and the emotions we shared, 3 questions emerged during the course of that meeting that the wisdom of that meeting said we'd like us all to engage. It is very possible, indeed probable, that one of you may be a prophet in our midst, or that one of you may have faith like Jesus or wisdom like Solomon right here on Zoom this morning, and if you do, we need to hear it. It is also possible that we are a gathering of humans, mere mortals, but each of us called, like Jeremiah, called for the living of this day, and asked to speak with love about what we love. And so thanks to the wonders of Zoom, we have an opportunity this morning to speak together. I'm going to ask some questions. I'm going to invite you to engage with me and with one another, to come off mute, to really engage in the chat window with these. Many members of Consistory are here with us to take notes. We're recording. This is a time of listening and of engagement. There are so many of us here, so I'll add a Shakespearean reminder to Paul's, brevity is the soul of wit. And because we are thinking of our future, I will also ask that we speak in the present tense and about our hopes for a future time. We can all agree about the great many things that we have loved historically about West End and our time together, about the time before pandemic, even the times in pandemic where we have found new ways of loving. But this is time, again, like Paul says, to grow up in our faith and to see more fully our future. And so for the next several minutes, I'm going to ask you to engage heartily in the chat window, or to come off mute and speak your mind. Speak your mind in love. The first question your elders and deacons would like us to consider is this: what is the ministry of West End Church? These simple questions, these ones that should be so obvious. But when's the last time we really considered it? What is the ministry of West End Church? I see Susan saying, loving pastoral care for all. Thank you, Susan. And if you're more of an introverted thinker or more of a Myers-Briggs P than a J, if you need some time, you can also consider these questions and send us an email or give me a call. Remember when we just called people without meeting appointments? You can just give me a call. A place to worship that welcomes all, taking good care of each other over a long time, knowing the people around us. We're a neighborhood church building community on shared values, community, a word again, community, for people to be together and explore and deepen their faith.
I'd like to add that during Zoom, we've been able to contact people wherever they are, be they in Florida or California or Michigan or other places. And it shows that we are not just a local church, but a national church. And the ability to join with Fort Washington and maybe other churches. The Zoom service, I think, adds to our exposure and to helping people to know God better.
Thank you for that, Ken. And thanks to all of you who are writing into this chat window. I'm seeing so many messages about community and about people, that people are what the church is. Faith and safety and love.
I'd like to add that we are the ministry. Each one of us has a gift, and we help each other to find what that gift is so that we can serve each other and the community. So we are desperately needed for ourselves and for this world that we live in. We are the ministry.
Kim beautifully said, we are the ministry. You are the ministry. The people are the ministry. Beautiful. Let me take that moment and ask a question that is a little more personal. With that understanding of what is the ministry of West End Church and knowing that we are all the ministry of West End Church. Question 2. What does West End Church add to your life? And how? What does West End Church add to your life? And how? Again, community and family, connection, worship, music. Being together and hope. God's presence and safety and love. And that we're not alone.
Hi, this is Julia.
Hi, Julia.
And I know I'm always in the presence of God. Sometimes I can shed my anxieties and feel it, and sometimes I can't so well. But West End is a place where I know that I am in the presence of God. And I need that sacred, separate space.
Thank you for that, Julia. I hear that. Thank you. I'm seeing in the chat window interpretation and theology, bringing the Bible to today, programming and how to be together in faith, and also calls for accountability and responsibility that go beyond the personal into the communal and the family to share love and life.
A space bar. Hi, it's Julie again. It's the other thing about West End is that I'm sorry, I can't work Peter's keyboard, so I keep talking. It's a place where I am called to thoughtful reflection about my relationship with God and my neighbor. And I'm emphasizing thoughtful.
Thanks for that, Julia. What do you see as the greatest need? This is the third question. What do you see as the greatest need of our neighborhood that our ministry could address? What is the greatest need of our neighborhood that our ministry could address?
Dive in.
Began by a statement about the ministry. We then asked a very personal question. And now we're asking one of looking outside, going beyond our walls.
I think that people need to feel the ability to go through the front door and just come in. That it is not a trap door, but it's an open door.
Peter, thank you for that. I would expect nothing else from our architect in residence than to make sure that that door is a sign of welcome, not of trap. I love that hospitality. Thank you, Peter. I'm seeing in the chat window opportunities for social justice and food insecurity on the Upper West Side. The great need that, or the ministry that our refrigerator served during some of the pandemic, making ourselves known, hunger and shelter and acceptance and hope, a place of meaning making. And of serving the greatest needs. There's children. I was wondering when they would come in. Thanks for that, Catherine. A place for children to find family and to grow. A place of hope, acceptance, and love, families.
I was going to say it's another lifeline in that, you know, you might find yourself just needing to have encouragement or just some kind of human interaction. And you know that you can come to West End just to be rebuilt, renewed.
Thanks for that, Narvi. I love that sense of invitation and welcome that you share. I see partnerships and arts, education, and justice.
And it needs to, I'm sorry. Alt.
We can hear you, Julia.
Oh, good. We need to be an active presence in the community. Accepting is very important, but being visible and active. And we had some backlash about that, but being active for all demographics is important.
Thank you for that, Julia. We did indeed have a lot of backlash when we got a little too public in our ministry last year.
That doesn't mean we were wrong.
Doesn't mean we were wrong. Thank you for that, Julia. Let me ask another question. We are the ministry of West End Church. We are a community. We offer connection. And we have a building that Henry and Michael are in this morning, and the rest of us are not. What ministerial value does our building offer us? How is our building part of our ministry?
The east windows up near the pulpit bring stillness to my soul every time I look at them.
Thank you, Julia. The windows, the art, the beauty.
We have to try not to separate art from life. Although there's not a single thing that I would object to that Julia says. I have never totally objected to anything that Julia said. But the building is a symbol as well. And when a person sees it, there are people who don't know what it is. There are some people who don't know what it is. If we go back, remember that it was based upon other things in Holland. So thank you. That's what I have to say.
Thank you, Peter.
I'd add that its measure of history. It was built on the Vlies Hall from Haarlem, Holland, built in the 1600s, and it recalls the Dutch heritage. But the Dutch were not just a small country in Europe; they moved around the world and brought people together. And so, to me, it's a continuation of a long tradition, which opens its arms to new people all the time.
Thank you for that, Ken.
A phrase keeps going through my head, a laying on of hands, which can only be done in one another's presence. And I think that is what our building signifies for me, that at some point we as human beings need the touch that a Zoom window doesn't provide. And to be in one another's company physically, there's nothing else like it.
Thanks for that, Kim. I hear that, and that importance of physical presence, which is, quite frankly, at the heart of the Christian faith, that God so loved the world that God took on human flesh, which is another way of saying God got out of the Zoom window and into human flesh with one another. I see several sentences about legacy and continuity, the beacon, music and gathering. These are the 4 questions. Well, the last one was spontaneous, but felt necessary. The first 3 are ones that your consistory has been considering as well, and that have been my constant prayer these days. Are there other questions? We have told you that we are not emerging from this unchanged. We know that there is no going back, there is only moving forward. We've been honest about that for years. And you know that the state of collegiate is far different from the memories many of you, I wish I shared them, have of collegiate in its days of flesh coffers. But there are other questions we should be asking ourselves, that you're asking yourself.
Well, should we be asking, I'm asking myself what I've done or what I should be doing to help achieve any of these.
Thank you for that, Julia. I hear a question about personal accountability. And that's a good question. Thank you.
I have a question of, we need to get past some of the drama with the pandemic and the situation with the collegiate churches has brought to us, and begin to really seek out to bring in others, especially families with children. Our children program and historically has been so fantastic place for people to grow up, and we need to and I need to stop just kind of only connecting to the people I've been connecting with and start trying to bring in a greater community.
Thanks for that, Mady. Your question is so similar to Shannon's question in the chat about how the larger institutional church struggles to engage younger people. How can we adapt to welcome those in our neighborhood who are seeking a spiritual home? And Judy asks how we can not lose our identity while growing and changing in a new direction and reality. Very good question. And finally, on the screens today, I see a lot of our elders and deacons who are active in this conversation in broader collegiate meetings and communities, and also with me. So I'm going to ask if any of them here, elders or deacons, if you are here, is there anything else you would like to ask?
A question that was more materialistic, but is this congregation willing to step up or able to step up to support a West End programming and ministry and fill the hole that's being created by what has been provided in the past by the greater endowment? If we're not willing to do that, we can't go forward.
Thank you, Mady. Thank you for asking the literal $1 million question. Anything else that wants to be said that's on your heart? Peter, and then Nathan.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
In response to Mady, I say that I agree, but whatever is done, it's one step at a time. Now, it depends on what your stride is.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate that. One of pace and distance and stride, certainly on our minds.
I have a question, and I'm thinking about how to phrase this. And we've talked about the resurrection of this community and the way that we will change in the future. And if there was one thing that we all could wish to retain through this transformation, what would it be? If we knew we would keep and lose some things, what is the one aspect of this community that we refuse to let go of?
I believe we will die as a community if we do not bring in young families and have a vibrant children's program, as well as a music program.
So thanks for that, Mady. Let me reiterate Nathan's question, which is, what is the one aspect of the community that we refuse to let go of? What are we going to the mattresses for? What's our fighting banner? Hi, Faye. Shannon reminds us that we need a church that welcomes children in all their ways, that children are children. I'm seeing we're going to the mattresses for our people, for all of us, for your pastors and leaders.
I think the essential part of the church is that every week we get together, and whatever we've done during the week, we can aspire to be better. We have hope, we have faith, and we need the weekly re-strengthening of that in order to continue in our public lives.
Thank you, Ken. Judy. Judy, your hand is raised. Do you mean it to be raised?
Okay. One, I think it's important, as much as we have Sunday service, the other things we do, the adult ed, the children's worship, the spirit talk, the supper center, that's what makes us who we are. A lot of churches have Sunday service. We have so much more to offer.
Thank you for that, Judy. I couldn't agree with you more.
Again, harking back to my concern for families, young families, and the future of the church and children. And in our neighborhood, I believe to some degree we need a building to service some of those functions in the neighborhood.
Thank you for that, Ivy. Friends, thank you for preaching with me today. This is the sermon of West End Church that we all need to hear and that we all know, that comes from our hearts. Hear these words of Psalm 71. In you, O Lord, I take refuge. Let us never be put to shame. In your righteousness to deliver us and rescue us. Incline your ear to me and save me. Be to us a rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save us, for you are our rock and our fortress. Rescue us, O God, from the hands of the wicked and from the grasp of the unjust and the cruel. For you, O Lord, are my hope, my trust. O Lord, from my youth, I have always been with you. Upon you we have learned from our births, and it was you who took us from our mother's womb. Our praise is continually of you. Amen.